With the recent release of LR Tien, I decided to rank every LR release in the month of June from worst to best. We'll mainly be ranking them based on how strong they were on release, but we'll also factor in how well they performed/aged for the difficult content released around their time. Let's get started with by far the worst June LR ever. LR Spirit Bomb Goku 2023. LR Goku is a massive loser and one of the worst LR releases in the history of the game. He was the third summonable base Goku released in a 4-month time span and was by far the worst of the three. He had absolutely no defensive mechanics in his kit and relied solely on his mediocre raw defensive stat to tank the boss's attacks, which he couldn't even do effectively. He also didn't have the ability to crit or launch additional super attacks, so despite being capable of reaching good attack stats when launching an 18-key super, his damage output wasn't anything crazy. Not to mention his full offensive potential could only be unlocked after delivering a final blow and when facing multiple enemies. He was a non-factor in the Future Saga Red Zone stages and could easily get sniped by Omega Shenron in the Birth of the Shadow Dragons event. Overall, LR Goku was a pointless release and is without question the worst unit on this list relative to when he came out. Number 7. LR Full Power Frieza 2019. One of the more forgettable LRs in the game, LR Full Power Frieza was actually quite decent when he came out and was capable of hitting like a truck. This unit had a baseline 80% attack and defense at the start of turn, and gained more attack the lower your HP was. He had a guaranteed chance to perform a critical hit when HP was 30% or less, and was boasting a 6 million plus attack stat with his full passive up. However, most of what made Full Power Frieza strong required you to be at low HP, which is a very risky strategy and allows you to be susceptible to dying very easily. He also sacrificed 8% HP on his 12-key super, which was intended to help you go below certain HP thresholds, but it ended up being more of a hindrance than anything. He was a high-risk, high-reward type of unit, but unfortunately, LR Full Power Frieza was just a bit too risky for most players. He wasn't bad by any means, but he also didn't stand out much in Super Battle Road or the Legendary Goku event. Number 6. LR Goku and Piccolo 2021. LR Goku and Piccolo's kit sounded underwhelming on paper, but they ended up surprising most of the community with how much better they actually were in-game. Goku and Piccolo gained 120% attack and defense when attacking with 12 or more ki, and built up 1 ki and 10% attack and defense for every attack performed up to a maximum of 6 times. Their stats were quite good once fully built up, and they also had decent super attack effects, raising attack and defense by 30% for 1 turn on both their 12 and 18 key supers. They launched a guaranteed additional normal attack, and had a 50% chance to launch another additional normal. Every time they performed 6 or more attacks in battle, they launched a guaranteed additional super attack when HP was 59% or less. This wasn't very common to see, but if you built this character with a lot of crit, they were able to dish out decent damage when doing their additional normals. The main thing that held this unit back was their lack of teams. On release, they possessed only 4 categories, with most of the teams they could be run on not being very good in 2021. Despite being pretty good for the GT Legendary Goku event, it was almost impossible to see this unit in action at full power, and it also didn't help that they only had a handful of decent linking partners. Overall, a pretty good unit that simply didn't have a proper team to shine on release. Number 5. LR Goku Black Zamasu 2017. LR Goku Black and Zamasu were the 4th ever summonable LR, and they were in the highest class of character despite being considered the weakest of the 4 summonable LRs at the time. They raised defense by 30% for 3 turns on 12 key, and for 6 turns on 18 key super, allowing them to become quite tanky. They also built up 30% attack per attack received up to a maximum of 120% and could hit quite hard. The biggest strength this card had was their healing. They recovered 15% HP at the start of turn from their passive. Furthermore, their TUR version was very good and also healed 10% HP at the start of turn. so a rotation of them together resulted in you recovering 25% HP every turn. They were one of the best rotations in the game, and LR Goku Black Zamasu significantly boosted LR Goku Black Zamasu's performance. Number 4. LR Tien 2025. The most recent LR on the list, LR Tien is incredibly powerful and is much closer to the top of the list than he is to the bottom. Firstly, LR Tien has a great leader skill, giving Final Trump Card and Earthling category allies 200% to all stats. Final Trump Card is currently one of the best categories in the game, consisting of 4 of the top 5 best units in the game, which makes LR Tien an incredibly valuable leader. Tien reduces damage taken from the first hit in a turn by 75%, and gains an additional 20% damage reduction for 3 turns after receiving an attack in slot 1. This means that Tien can get up to 95% damage reduction for the first hit he receives, making him invincible to any big boss super out the gate. He also gains 30% damage reduction for the turn after receiving an attack, meaning he has 50% damage reduction after the first hit in slot 1. This high damage reduction, combined with Tien's high defensive stats, makes Tien a very reliable tank. In slots 2 or 3, Tien becomes a bit more offensive, gaining massive stats and super effective against all types for 4 turns, on top of having a 70% chance to dodge for the turn when attacking. Lastly, Tien has an active skill attack, as well as a high chance to nullify and counter Ki Blast super attacks, with a guaranteed chance to counter Ki Blast supers from Kamehameha category enemies. This, combined with Tien's ability to greatly stack attack on his 18 Ki super, allows Tien to dish out ludicrous amounts of damage on his active skill and counter. He is currently a contender for top 10 overall units in the game, and is one of the most powerful June LRs ever. Shockingly, however, this June time slot has debuted 3 LRs that were even greater monsters than Tien on release. Number 3. LR Cell Max 2024. LR Cell Max was absolutely jaw-dropping when he came out. He gained 300% attack and defense at the start of turn, as well as 1 ki and 20% defense for every attack received, and 1 ki and 20% attack for every attack performed, up to a maximum of 5 times each. Once fully built up, Cell Max was shooting out 40 million plus attack stats, with 20 million plus attack stats on his additional super attacks. He also possessed one of the strongest abilities any character could have, Attack Attraction / Taunt. Not only was Cell Max's active skill attack capable of hitting quite hard, he also raised defense by 999% and directed enemies' attacks towards himself for 1 turn. His active skill buff is calculated separately from his passive buffs, resulting in Cell Max gaining a maximum of 14,187% defense, shooting his defense past 10 million on his active turn. He was considered the second best unit in the game on release, and was on the same tier as LR Beast Gohan. However, there are 2 major flaws holding back Cell Max from placing higher on this list. Cell Max was actually quite restrictive, and needed all allies attacking in the same turn to be either artificial life forms, super bosses, or movie bosses category characters for Cell Max to gain a significant portion of his defense. Remember, you can't mix and match units from different categories. All allies on the turn needed to be one of the 3 categories listed. Furthermore, Cell Max's active skill required all allies in the same turn to be artificial life forms or super bosses characters, starting from the 4th turn from battle, or all allies in the turn to be extreme class starting from the 6th turn from battle. These restrictions weren't so bad when Cell Max initially came out, but as harder events were released throughout the year, it became increasingly difficult to satisfy Cell Max's restrictions, as characters from the categories listed above started to greatly struggle against the new tough bosses. This leads into perhaps Cell Max's biggest flaw, needing to get hit to build up defense. Cell Max was capable of getting sniped before fully building up his defense, and he became a massive liability against bosses that hit hard at the start, such as memorable battles Super Janemba and Super Gogeta. The units surrounding Cell Max were also unable to keep up with the increase in difficulty post Tanabata, which made running teams with Cell Max a lot less consistent. Despite not aging as well as people hoped, Cell Max was still a behemoth when he came out and could still perform well against Goku and Frieza in other longer fights. Number 2. LR Golden Frieza 2022. Here he is, one of the greatest defensive units in the history of the game. LR Golden Frieza gained 90% damage reduction for his first turn, and lost 10% damage reduction for every turn passed, up to a maximum of 60% loss in damage reduction. For his first 2 appearances, LR Golden Frieza was the best tank in the game and was impervious to every big boss super. By his 3rd appearance, he was still capable of tanking quite well with 50% damage reduction, and once he only had 30% damage reduction left in his passive, he could still survive Red Zone Broly and Red Zone Omega super attacks. He was considered by many to be the best unit in the game after the 7th anniversary LRs, and outperformed them before they transformed. He aged incredibly well and was still supremely good a year later in the Future Saga Red Zone stages, being one of the few reliable Slot 1 tanks in both 2022 and 2023. He is still runnable to this day in short content such as Battlefield and Super Battle Road, and is without a doubt one of the greatest designed units ever. Number 1. LR Ultra Instinct Saiyan Goku 2020. One of the most surprising releases in Dokkan history, LR UI Saiyan Goku was a global first LR who debuted on JP a month later. He took the game completely by storm and instantly became the best unit on both global and JP, surpassing the 5th anniversary Blue Fusions and LR Kale and Caulifla. UI Goku had a very simple kit. He gained 77% attack and defense at the start of turn, and had a 70% chance to evade enemies' attacks for the first 7 turns from his entry. He also built up 1 ki and 11% attack and defense for every attack evaded up to a maximum of 7 times. He decimated Super Battle Road, Extreme Super Battle Road, and Battlefield. Furthermore, despite only having a 50% chance to dodge after the 8th turn from his entry, he was still very powerful in long events. Even though the final phase of the legendary Goku event had dodge cancelling, by the time his passive was fully built up, he was capable of tanking UI Goku supers at the end, while also being borderline unstoppable in the prior phases. Unlike almost every unit on this list, and pretty much every unit in the game on his release, UI Goku dominated every type of difficult content in the game, short or long. He was also still very powerful a year later in the God of Destruction event, and had a perfect linking partner in 6th anniversary UI Goku. He is quite obviously the strongest June LR ever, and is among the best LRs in the game on release.